Hi, and welcome to the NBA Economy Show. Just want to welcome everybody this evening. Just wanted to give you some updates. Wanted to bring you a topic I know a lot of people have been asking, and being the time of year, it's on a lot of people's minds. So the main topic was will the Knicks trade Mitchell Robinson. But before that, what we'll do is we're just gonna talk of just a few things that happened. So I was able to get a question on Ian Begley's putback today, and my question was, since the Knicks had interest in Trey Murphy the third this summer, would they be interested in Cam Johnson? And Cam Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets isn't a huge salary. They seem to want some assets. We see that he's a good player. They're not looking to just get rid of him, but they're just stacking assets. They're looking to hit the lottery, see what the ping pong balls can get them, and then next year make a few moves and reemerge and kind of retool the team. They're not going to go through the whole process, but by that time that the team is championship ready, Cam Johnson would be a little bit older than they would want their main group to be. So they want to have a younger squad. So they're looking to get rid of him. He's in the low 20s. However, it seems like the timing is bad. We know that Trey Trey Murphy the third was an interest of the Knicks this year. Um, you have to note that this summer with Trey Murphy is before his extension, so he wasn't extended yet. So he was still on his rookie contract. He was looking for an early extension, so the Knicks would have, you know, put something together for Trey Murphy and then extend him. So we're not talking the same amount of money, even though Cam Johnson reminds you of Trey Murphy a lot. It's just that the new buzzword is transaction cycle, and the Knicks transaction cycle is where are they now with contracts they have in house, with assets they have in house. It's just not good for a trade. So the Knicks, to make something like that happen, you would have to use Mitch. You would have to probably use Deuce. You would have to use Precious. You probably even have to use Kolick. You probably have to use pretty much every trade asset just to get him, and then you would scramble um, to just get people to fill the roster. Doesn't mean that he's not worth it. It's just that it's just bad timing. Something like that in the off season, you could maneuver around, but mid season is so hard to maneuver. So Ian Begley did reply saying, just the Knicks are looking maybe to future transaction cycles to pull a move that he just doesn't see a big move because we just don't have like very good contracts to move around. Um, so that was the answer to that question. Um, so look for that people to use transaction cycle is basically the summer. There are a lot more different players available than there are now. There are a lot different contracts. There's a lot more flexibility. So basically, once the deck is shuffled again, there may be something that you can do then that would make more sense than now. Okay. Um, so when it comes to Mitchell Robinson, how did we get here? So we see Mitch was injured last year. Um, we do see he has an injury history. But when he was injured last year, mid-season, um, also we saw that he was injured mid-season. He came back for the playoffs, and then he was injured again. Well, why was that? Well, we can look at kind of there was some kind of some pressure there because we saw that Randall was also injured, and he wanted to come back for the playoffs. We see Randall wasn't able to do that. So the Knicks were down a major player for the playoffs. So we could see where Mitchell Robinson maybe wanted to come back a little early. He probably wasn't 100%, but he can play. So he came back early. Um, so we see that he kind of put took a risk there, and then we saw the play with Embiid. Embiid injured him. He was able to continue a game, a game or so, but he was injured. Um, we see that even the Knicks gave mixed messages when it came to his injury. We saw that was in the 76 round, but we started to hear rumors that he may come back for the Indiana series for game 6 or game 7. So we saw the Knicks kind of gave mixed messaging there. Um, Also, the Knicks this summer with the Minnesota Timberwolves, we see that they were pursuing Cat. That's Cat was something they really want. They offered Randall and they offered Mitchell Robinson. When they offered it, they said that Mitchell Robinson would be ready for the beginning of the year. We see that did not happen. Mitchell Robinson had a setback. Um, we also just as fans, we expected Mitch to be there at the beginning of the year. That didn't happen. There wasn't very good clarity in about that setback. Um, so as we gone along, we saw that his situation wasn't exactly where we thought it was. Um, so now we're in January, and Mitchell Robinson still isn't back. We heard positive messages. Mitch is taking pictures. They say he's on a treadmill. They say he's not full speed, um, but he sometime this month they're expecting him to get the clear for practice, and then shortly after, hopefully full contact. So as a trade piece, you have to put all this in consideration. So the Knicks had mixed messages. Uh, the clarity on the injury hasn't been clear, and now they're trying to trade him. So they're saying to go to other teams like, hey, he's going to be right around the corner. He's going to be 100%. Would you trust them? I don't think a lot of teams are going to trust what the Knicks say. They have to see it. So the best to get the best value for Mitchell Robinson is for people to see him on the court, see he's healthy, um, see him in good shape. And will we get that before February 6th? The February 6th deadline. There's a slim chance, but it doesn't look like there's going to be much time. Enough time for him to get into shape, into game shape. Game shape and just in shape are two different things. So you can't expect to get full value for Mitchell Robinson. A very good defender. Um, de-escalating contract, which is always great, but don't expect full value. You can look at Mitchell Robinson as a mechanic special. So um, I don't know if you've ever tried to buy a car. I remember back in the day, I would try to look at an Acura, and these Acuras with that amount of mileage, well, it should be about $10,000. And you call somebody up, oh, looks like a good price, and he's like, hey, the car should cost about $10,000, but you know what? The transmission is busted. And, oh, it's like $2,000. Am I gonna okay? Am I gonna pay? Okay, I'll pay 8, and I'll get the $2,000 transmission fix. No, because you don't know what you're getting. I'm not paying $8,000 plus $2,000 to fix it because there may be other things wrong with it. That's how other teams are going to look at Mitch. They're not going to give you full value. They're not going to give you um, the value of a good to borderline great defensive player, a great offensive rebounder. Instead of looking at him as the upper half of centers, you may get value of just an average center. So at that point, do you, as the Knicks, trade him when you're not getting the full value? I don't think you do. Um, you have to look at what other teams are offering. So if the Knicks want to get a great return, they may have to, one, trade Mitch for a lesser player, um, or two, attach assets um, to get a better player. Um, and who would, if we have to attach assets, what teams would we be talking to? A lot of people. Let's look in the on the. Well, the team that a lot of people want to talk about, and we're going to look on Sport Track. It's kind of like Fanspo, but actually has some better tools. Is the Washington Wizards. So with the Washington Wizards, okay, let me see. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Okay. And so we see here Mitchell Robinson, and it has his salary of 14.3 million and change. He has one more year, and so next year he actually has his number is going down. So that is great. All right. So what team will we're talking what did the Wizards have, being that we're a first apron team, that they can give us a slightly less than 14.3 million. That would work for the Knicks. Well, they have a lot of things that we probably would like, probably toward the top. So Malcolm Brogdon, the Kyle Kuzmas, but we would have a hard time getting to this number. And they don't want to take on extra years and players for these type of contracts. You don't want to get rid of a Brogdon with who's expiring and then take on players with 2 years. They want to get rid of him. They maybe want something with him, but they don't want to take on more years. Okay. So the one player who actually makes a lot of sense is Jonas Valanciunas. He doesn't quite. Okay. So there is a $4.4 million difference. Wizards probably don't want to add that much on, so there probably have to be an additional player added. Jonas Valanciunas did a great job on New Orleans. He's kind of on the bench. He is on the bench on Washington. He is looking to get out. When they signed him, it was quite clear that he was being traded at the deadline. So Valanciunas makes a lot of sense there. Um, but what did the Knicks need? They wanted defense. Mitchell Robinson, Valanciunas is a decent defender. He's not a great defender. Definitely not a great offensive rebound guy. I think he would help, but you're giving up a lot. Like if Mitch is truly healthy, you would rather have Mitchell Robinson than Jonas Valanciunas. If anything, I would probably give up Precious, and I would probably give up a couple other things um, to get Jonas Valanciunas. Jonas Valanciunas says his people have been in contact with the Knicks, and Jonas Valanciunas says that it's complicated. So it's something that they have spoken about. He says it's with the Knicks' assets. Um, it doesn't quite look good because if you use Precious, you probably have to add two more pieces to get it done. If you're using Mitch, you're giving up too much. Um, so that's not um, a great return. I really don't think this makes a lot of sense for the Knicks using Mitch, but I would not rule out Jose, Jonas Valanciunas. Um, a lot of people have said trade Mitch for a small forward. So a lot of people said Dorian Finney-Smith before the trade in the last week. A lot of people said Dorian Finney-Smith. I, for one, thought that would have been a good idea. Um, but today on Ian Begley's putback, he says the Knicks most likely would not be looking for a wing in return for Mitch. They need a center, so they want center. They want Mitch back or someone to replace him. Um, so if they traded Mitch for a wing, believe me, a second trade is coming. So I don't. I wouldn't rule out Mitch for a wing, but if it's Mitch for a wing, it's going to be an additional trade, and that's a lot of movement for a team that you really think is in title contention. Do you want to stir the pot that much down the stretch? With the three game losing streak, who knows if it goes on longer? If we're in a bad stretch, who knows? They maybe want to, you know, mix things up. But for now, I don't think they're going to mix things up. Um, so would I think the Knicks will trade Mitchell Robinson? I'm putting the chance at 35%. I if you asked me a few weeks ago, before Dorian Finney-Smith got traded, I'd probably put it at 60-40 that he was going to get traded. I really think Precious is the person who's more likely to be traded than Mitch. I think they can get a lot more by just waiting for Mitch than trying to replace him with a lesser player and hope he mixes. We know what we get from Mitch. What's more important is Tibbs knows what he gets from Mitch. We know that if you trade for a player and Tibbs doesn't like the player, Tibbs will sit that player. You don't want that to happen. You want a person who knows the game, who knows he fits, and he fits. So that's why I don't think a lot of teams are going to give up enough for a mechanic special for someone who the Knicks have been wrong about publicly a few times about his recovery. So I don't think that trust is there. Um, so I think that's an issue. If anyone has any questions, okay. Blorange Tears is in the chat, and he says Aaron Nesmith and James Wiseman for Mitchell Robinson. That's interesting. Um, James Wiseman has never proven himself to be a valuable piece for any team. We saw that in Golden State. He just man, he was ostracized. I think unfairly. I think unfairly. Um, Coach is hard. They really wanted him to play one way, and since he wasn't that type of player, he was in the doghouse. I think he also played with Detroit. Um, Detroit was just in a bad environment. So we just don't know. I think if it's James Wiseman, it's a dice roll. With James Wiseman, you're basically you're trading for Aaron Nesmith, and then you're seeing what you can get from Wiseman. Um, if I can get Aaron Nesmith and I can give James Wiseman to Washington for Valanciunas, I'd do that. If I get Nesmith and Valanciunas, that makes sense. But we'll see. Okay. So I mean that's basically what I had for the conversation on Mitchell Robinson. Um, I know we have plenty of other free agency conversation. We see the Jimmy Butler situation could definitely stir the pot in the league, and then perhaps someone becomes available, um, as a third party in a trade. So we'll see what's up with this Jimmy Butler trade. We see that this Jimmy Butler trade they said may happen within the week. So Jimmy Butler currently has a 7 game suspension from the Heat. What the rules with the new CBA and players is, especially with star players, you can't sit them for no reason. So the the old days of sending players home just because they're not getting along, you go home until we trade you. That could happen, but not for star players. So it looks like the Heat are going to try to rush and get a trade done before those 7 games are up, or they'll have to bring him back. And we know, he is disruptive, and what he did on the court last week was was unacceptable. So he basically pulled a Marbury and started like stop getting involved in the game. So they don't want to see that happen. They can't sit him. So we're going to see them try to rush a trade. Um, Memphis looked like a good place where both teams could have benefited. But basically, he had his agent go and tell Memphis, "Don't trade for me, or I'm not gonna re-sign with you." So we're gonna see what's gonna happen with Phoenix. Um, Phoenix is in a odd situation because since they are a second apron, they can only trade. Um, oh, hey, Shop Powers. Hey, what's up? Um, yeah, they can only trade one. They can only trade one player at a time. So they can't aggregate. They can't add a bunch of salaries to equal Jimmy Butler. So their best candidate, um, yeah. So they're trying to trade a player that nobody wants for Jimmy Butler. They don't have a bunch of draft picks to trade. I think they have um, 2 second round picks available. I don't know how they're going to pull that off. They're definitely going to use a third team, and once you start using third teams, there may be players available, and that the Knicks may be able to improve on the margins. So maybe you can maybe get off sending them a random player in a couple seconds, and you end up with someone who's at the back of the rotation. So that's the way the Knicks could do some improving. So look out for that trade. Not only that, I think the Knicks are going to look to improve. I think the Knicks will do some small trades at the very least. Um, at the very least, do some small trades. It doesn't look good for big trades because this summer looks like a much easier path to make a bigger impact. Um, right now we do have that Washington conditional first that's basically going to be two. But if you wait till summer with the around the draft, the Knicks will have not only that pick, but they'll have um, let me see, you can trade anytime into current draft. So after the draft, the Knicks would have two first rounders available. They have that that conditional pick, and they'll have one pick available for next year. So the Knicks may use their buying power then and not now. Okay. Shaw Power says, "What about the Hornets?" I think Hornets. Um, I think us and the Hornets do make good trade partners, but not necessarily Mitchell Robinson. Because with the Hornets, let me bring this up here. Let's go to the computer. Okay, so we talked about the New York Knicks here, Charlotte Hornets. So I think most people would agree Nick Richards has been a name that has been in the news a lot with the Knicks at $5 million and $5 million next year. That's precious type money. The reason that they would be willing to trade a good player like Nick Richards is because um, they have a center they prefer, which is Mark Williams. They're not going to trade us Mark Williams, so they're going to trade us. They could trade us Nick Richards for. I would say for us, you're probably looking at Precious and second round picks. So maybe 3 seconds, and the Knicks have I think a lot of like 9 seconds available. So that's something that makes sense. Why haven't they done that already? Well, Precious Precious is not trade eligible yet. Uh, Precious is trade eligible on the 15th. So January 15th, since he traded it, since he um, declined his trade clause, it added another month till he was eligible. So January 15th, if the Knicks want to do that, they would be free and clear to do that. Um, we haven't heard anything as in the works, but we know Leon's the person. Um, he is quiet until the deal gets done. So we could see the 15th. We could start hearing some rumors um, about Nick Richards. The thing about Nick Richards, he is a center. There is no mistaking Nick Richards for a power forward. So if Nick Richards is in the fold, that's two guys at one position. That's Mitchell Robinson and Nick Richards. So if you get Nick Richards in the door, then you may look at Mitchell Robinson being moved, um, broken down in for another piece. But yeah, that's always something to consider. Yeah, we'll see that. That's probably a week away. Um, we haven't heard anything about that. But the Knicks are always interested in him, and Mark Williams has recently come back from injury, and he is putting some games in. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Always, please like and subscribe. We're trying to get to 500 by the end of trade season. Yeah, I'm gonna start recording more regularly. So please do that. Please subscribe on X. Also, I have a Cash App to buy me a coffee or whatever. The production costs, so I don't have to, I guess, foot all the production costs. You regularly could see me behind the scenes on the Nick of Time show. So uh, behind the scenes, the Nick of Time show, always moderating for them, always with my friend Blowing Tears, Uncle Freezy. I try to jump on with him time to time. So subscribe to them as well. All right. Thank you for joining, and I will see you shortly. Thank you.